Okay. Brilliant. Right, our next speaker is Shadi Rahimi, who is a senior Newsgathering Producer at AJ+. And she leads their roving field team, producing videos that are getting top retention and completion stats on YouTube. In 2015, Shadi was one of the first journalists to use Facebook Live to broadcast and has won many awards. She led the social media team at AJ+, helping it become a top 10 video publisher on Facebook. Shadi trained as a journalist and started at the New York Times. So today she's going to talk about how emotion helps you win with video that's made for social media. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So I was going to introduce myself, but now that I don't need to, I can get right into the presentation. So today I am going to be talking about how you can utilize emotions when producing for digital media in order to get more engagement and possibly even go viral. And I'll talk about all of that today. But first, I just want to start out by showing you a very short clip of our most viewed video ever of all time. And it's definitely a video that is going to spark some sort of emotion in you. So I'm just going to pay attention and see if you all react the way most audiences do. Oh, it disappeared. Yeah, that's the background of my computer. Let's try this one more time. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm not sure what's happening technically. The video doesn't seem to be playing. Apologies. Should I try it again? Okay. Never experienced this before.
Los peluqueros generalmente cortan por un lado y luego cortan por el otro. ¿Y qué?
No.
Carry on. We'll work something out.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. That doesn't normally happen, but I'm going to have to skip through that. Okay, maybe not. One sec. We'll try one more time. Is it going to work? Yes.
Los peluqueros generalmente cortan por un lado y luego cortan por el otro. Y que siempre quedará siempre un lado diferente al otro. Aunque sea muy poquito. O sea, la única forma que queden exactamente igual con una precisión matemática es cortarlos los dos a la vez. ¿Y cómo se puede hacer eso? ¿Cómo puedes cortar dos lados a la vez? Necesitarías... uso de herramientas prácticamente primitivas, fuego, espadas, poco más que medievales.
So just a little clip of it. So I saw some of you reacting, laughing, smiling, right? So it brings out joy in the audience. But that video, I usually talk a lot more and longer about the social media mindset. And this is the way that I've broken it down. This is something that intrinsically everybody in our office knows, because at AJ+, we produce content solely for digital platforms, which means that we need to create content that goes by all of these rules. So today I'm just going to be talking about the last rule, how will my audience feel? The video I just showed you is an example of a video that fits every single one of these rules, and most of the videos that we produce do. But first I want to get a sense of you all in the room. When you're producing content or publishing content, how many of you actually think to yourself, either at the point of pitching or publishing, how will my audience feel? Do any of you actually ask yourselves that? Barely anybody in the room. Okay, so I'm here to tell you that you have to think about this, especially if you're publishing content on digital platforms, and I'll tell you why. So, emotions equal engagement, and that's what we all want when we're publishing to digital platforms or putting content out anywhere. We want to know, are people watching? So are we getting views? Did they engage? Are we getting likes and comments? And most importantly, are they associating themselves with the content, meaning are they sharing and embedding? Because ultimately, especially a platform like Facebook, is really just, we talk about it sometimes as a bumper. And the content that you're sharing is like the stickers that you put on your bumper. You're associating yourself with the content. Because really, Facebook is just an echo chamber. We have niche audiences on there, and on your timeline, because of algorithms and also because of the nature of the network you've created for yourself, you are continuously sharing, without realizing it or not, things that confirm your worldview, things that you believe in, things that you want to associate yourself with. And so are all the other people that you have on your timeline as well. And so emotions play a huge part of this, and I'm going to talk about why next. So everything I'm saying isn't just something that I've sort of made up, or even that I've tested out in the field, which I have, and I will talk about that. But in 2015, there was a group of scientists who set out to find out how to make their own studies more well-read. So they actually wanted more engagement, both by the press and by, ordinary people out there. So they set out to examine what makes some content spread like wildfire, go viral, and whether it's possible to deliberately achieve viral status. And if so, what are the characteristics of viral content? So what they did was they studied 7,000 articles from the New York Times website over a period of 3 months to find out. And they did 2 phases to this study, and the second phase confirmed the first, but I'll just go into the first because it's most applicable to what I'm saying today. So these are the 2 major findings. They found that while content may be shared for a myriad of reasons, overall, content that elicits an emotional reaction is more likely to is going to be more widely shared than content that does not. And digging deeper, they looked at the types of emotions, right? So they found that content that elicits joy is most likely to be viral content or go viral. It's more likely to go viral than negative emotions. And then when they looked deeper into negative emotions, they found that anger is more likely to go viral than low arousal emotions like sadness or depression. And of course, this applies in real life. If you are, happy, or somebody, is making you feel happy, you're likely to smile and laugh, activating, right? If you're angry, you're more likely to act, versus when you're depressed, low arousal, you're less likely to act. So those are the emotions that they found actually spark people to act online as well. So I'm going to go into how I use this in the work that we do. And I just want to say, I hadn't read this study. I read this study a year after I started my work, so it wasn't that I read a scientific study and then went out and experimented with this related to social media. It was more that the study confirmed what I already knew and was finding to be true. So my team works on short documentaries, and we go out into the field and we do original content. So earlier this year, we went back to Germany and Greece to follow up on the refugee crisis reporting that we did in 2015 at the height of it. And when we were in Germany, we found that the story we needed to tell was fairly complex and that it was a sad one. That's just the nature of the story that we found. Germany welcomed Syrian refugees with open arms, but it wanted those who had been rejected for asylum out. There's nothing we could do with this. It is a sad story. It's important. It needs to be told. And of course, the journalism is the most important thing for us, not creating some false sense of emotion when it's not really there. So I want to make that clear. I don't have time to show you the videos, but I am going to show you the way that we hacked what we know about digital platforms. So we put out this video about 13 minutes long, and it was a very comprehensive report. And of course, we knew this isn't going to go viral. It's not easy to understand, at first roll on autoplay on Facebook. So what we decided to do was we decided to do a shorter cut of just the last character that we had in the story, because his story of success in Germany was extremely joyous. So he's somebody that in 2015, we walked from Austria to Germany across the border with. Our audience was familiar with this guy and definitely wanted to know what had happened to him. And his story was great. So he has pretty much achieved all the goals he set out to do. And not only does he know how to speak German fluently now, but our presenter, Dina, who communicates with him in Arabic, found that his German was coming to the forefront of his mouth before his Arabic. So he said, my German is actually better than my Arabic now. And that was like extremely fascinating for us. And so we open up the video with her laughing with him, teasing him about the fact that he lost his Arabic for German. I'm going to show you the difference in views. So the first cut has even less than half the number of views as the second. The cut that elicits joy versus sadness. And then if you look at the likes, obviously you're going to like something that makes you happy a lot more than something that doesn't. But the shares is what's really important, because what we did with the second cut is we linked to the first longer piece. That's our way of hacking the fact that we know that doing longer, higher production, and more in-depth pieces that are more journalistic actually don't get shared as much. It's a huge challenge. So the way that we get around this now, using the things that I know, is that often with our longer pieces, we create shorter cuts that have one tone, one emotion, a very simple story that's easy to understand to push people to the longer reporting that we do. So as I said, I didn't learn the things that I know now from the study. I learned it in the field. And a month before the study was actually published, and well before I knew about it, it was June 2015, and this had just happened in the US. So there was a racially charged shooting at a church, horrific. 9 black churchgoers were killed in a racially motivated shooting by Dylan Roof. And AJ Plus was just a year old, and we hadn't gone into the field except to report on Ferguson a little bit. Our office was not set up to have original reporting, to have people in the field. Al Jazeera wanted, so AJ Plus is Al Jazeera's digital channel. Al Jazeera wanted to create a distinct difference between what we were doing and what the rest of their network was doing. So at the time, it was just us and Now This that were creating these short videos for digital. And I set out to make a viral video. That was my goal, in my head, whether I expressed it or not. And the reason was that I wanted to prove to our managers and the people in our office that we could also get the views we needed with original reporting and not just with taking found content online, which was cheap and easy. I wanted to show that we could, that it was worth us going out into the field. And not only was it good for our brand and it was good for us as journalists, but also that we could create content that would be shared as widely as the other content we were creating. So I convinced them to let me take a team to Charleston, and we just had 2 days to do 2 pieces. And before I went, I met with our audience development team. And the reason I did that was because I'm a journalist. You send me anywhere on a moment's notice, I can get you a story. But what I needed to do was find a way to craft a story that would play well on digital, meaning engage people the most. So what I noticed in the online conversation at the time around this killing was that it wasn't about gun control, rather it was about racism. But at the time, and this is a screenshot from recent, so if I had taken a screenshot back then, when we did a search of the question, is the South racist? No other media outlet was addressing this question. And so we knew in SEO searches we would pop up first if this was our headline. Also, this is 2 years later, and we're still the top video that you see. We're the first video, but we're the top headline that you see in a search for this question. At AJ Plus, we are all about engagement, and so asking the audience questions is foremost for us. But at the time, we used to ask questions at the end of videos. So we'd tell you a whole story, and then we'd ask you some very obvious question. So I said, what if our headline was a question? And people started to answer that question before even watching the video. And this was also before autoplay. So we really were faced with the challenge of making people click because the videos wouldn't play automatically on Facebook. I'm going to play you just the first, hopefully it works, the first 15 seconds of the video so you can see the way we opened it. We chose the most provocative, controversial, and horrible, quote that we received in the field. But it was a way to provoke the audience into an emotion so that they would react and keep watching. Please work.
Hey, you look at the Negroes in this country, what do they want? They want people to come from Africa. The Mexicans want people, they stick up for their own kind. The Mexicans want more Mexicans here. It's that way.
That's how we started the video. Pretty controversial at the time, not so much now. So this is how the video has done on YouTube and Facebook. It's still one of the most viewed videos we've ever had. which I'm not necessarily proud of because it's not my best work of journalism. It was just vox pops, really. We drove from the church to Dylan's hometown and talked to people along the way, including one of his friends. But it was my first time putting the rules that I sort of intrinsically knew to the test, and I found that they were all true. When you think about why fake news does so well, when you think about why Donald Trump's tweets, spark everyone to talk about them for 24 hours, if not more, it's because of emotions. I mean, that's ultimately what it is, and he knows that, and he plays into it fully. Fake news knows that, plays into it fully. I would like to think we use it for good. That could be something that could be debatable, but that's definitely what I think about. So one thing I will say to our credit and our audience's credit, they stuck around till the very end of this video, and the top 2 comments still to this day are quoting people that we talked to who actually had some pretty deep things to say. So the retention was extremely high, and it does give them a lot of credit that they actually stuck around to the end to see what people had to say and had some fruitful conversations in the comments. So that takes me to today. The last trip that we had was South Korea, talking about the tensions between North Korea and the US. I'm actually flying after this to Spain, so that's the next assignment. So I got what I wanted. I got the field team I wanted. We do much more in-depth reporting. Now my videos have gone from 3 minutes to 13 to 15 minutes. So the challenge that I face now is how can I grab the audience the way that I used to, but also contain their interest or keep their interest and the emotional level in a way to carry them through a 15-minute story rather than just hooking them in the first 3 seconds like we do with Facebook. So the way that I have set about doing this is the emotions that I try to tap into now are a bit more complex, I guess. So intrigue, excitement, danger, outrage if necessary, but it's whatever the story calls for. And our videos continue to have the highest retention and completion rates on Facebook and YouTube. And I'm going to play just a little bit of a news package that Al Jazeera English did, which is a great news package, traditional television news. This is, our network, so I'm not saying anything negative. It's just a different style of reporting. So it's the traditional news package of the same story we set out to do, and then I'm going to play you the top of our story so you can see the difference in our approach.
This tiny rural community is famous throughout South Korea and China for its sweet melons. It is home to families that have cultivated this land for centuries. People like Shin Dong-ho. Shin is the 5th generation of his family to grow up in Songju. Life here has been peaceful, until now. Today, Songju is famous for this, a United States weapons system designed to take down short and mid-range ballistic missiles.
Okay, so you get the gist. This is ours. Play.
It's tense on the Korean peninsula.
You said you're ready to fight tonight.
Yes, always. Fight tonight, fight together, and fight strong. Every day, 24/7, we're just ready to go.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and President Trump are exchanging heated threats, and the South Korean and U.S. armies are on alert.
The Korean soldiers telling us not to film.
Now, the South Korean government is installing one of the U.S. military's most advanced missile defense systems, called THAAD, in a remote village despite ongoing protests.
다 온다 여기. 얘는 저녁에 이래 10시까지 모이가 이래 아닌 이래 막 이래 자꾸 슬퍼서. 이 조용한 마을이 와 이러노 이라 와 이러노 이렇게 울어.
Very different, right? So if you take a look at the numbers that Al Jazeera English has on YouTube compared to ours, we have a quarter of their subscribers. But our piece was published 5 months after theirs, and we have 500,000 views and growing compared to 8,000, and then you can see the other numbers up there. So it's the same story, but it's clearly tailored for a social media audience, clearly tailored for a millennial audience. If we're looking at who we're competing for, it might be somebody like Vice versus any other traditional news outlet. So, of course, everything I'm talking about today is something that people who are in film, in TV, and documentary have been doing since day one. But my background is in print, and I came to video much later. And I've seen that, especially when I do a lot of workshops and trainings and talks with people that are still in regional and local newsrooms and print newsrooms, they're highly uncomfortable with the idea of employing emotions. However, I remember when I used to write my leads, obviously if you stack your lead with a bunch of facts and a bunch of dry information and don't tell people what the point of the whole story is and what they should be feeling about it, you're probably not going to get them to read to the very end, right? Same thing with video. It's very basic. What I thought was interesting was I was on LinkedIn the other day and I saw this ad. This is something I didn't know, so I thought I'd share it. There's a New York-based tech company that works with 90% of TV networks in America. Again, it's an ad, so who knows if that's actually true, but I thought it was interesting. Including, the producers of Game of Thrones. And what they do is they evaluate for them the top emotional reactions, or what they call ERs, online with the social media audience that's watching these television shows. So you watch an episode of Game of Thrones, you go on Twitter, you go on Facebook, you're reacting to certain characters or certain plot lines. They inform the producers of this, and supposedly, according to this reporting that I read in Mashable, the producers supposedly actually adjust their scripts accordingly and decide what to promote and even what characters to focus on. So they're much more sophisticated than I am when it comes to taking this information and doing something with it. But I think it's really interesting what they're doing, and I think that's definitely somewhere we're headed if we acknowledge the fact that emotions are actually extremely important on digital media. So I'm over time, sorry about that. So I'm just going to end with, this is directly from the scientific article, and I thought it was a really good way to end, which is, if you want videos, press releases, a scientific study to reach as many people as possible, the way to increase the chances of that is to make it emotional, and within reason and responsibly, of course. So if you can, tap into emotions like anger, anxiety, or awe, things that make our hearts race, and if you can, make it positive, they say. It's probably the best bet that you have to take a piece of content from something that might be shared to something that will quite likely be shared. And what I often tell journalists, especially those who are a bit skeptical about this, is that in the end, we are no longer just reporters, we are content creators. If you are producing content for digital platforms, you not only need to know how to be a journalist and craft a proper story, you also need to know how to make it as shareable as possible. Because in the end, if you're out there doing your job and nobody is reading and nobody is watching, what's the point? Right? So I hope that what I've talked about today has given you some ideas of how you can adapt it to the work that you do. And if not, feel free to ask me questions and challenge me on it. I'm happy to hear what you have to say if we have any time. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we are over time, but are there any burning questions? No.
Nothing?
Silence. I have to say that the example you gave of the Al Jazeera standard journalistic treatment and then your treatment and the difference in views and shares, that was really striking. And I think earlier today we had somebody from Facebook saying that 40% of video views are videos that have been shared at least once.
Yeah.
Ones that haven't been shared don't get viewed. So it's like, this is the way to promote.
Shares is the golden, it's what we all go for.
Yeah.
It's no longer views, because views, we always think of it as just, especially on Facebook, it's false. As people are scrolling, it autoplays. The views don't mean as much to us as shares. Shares mean people not only appreciated your content, but they're willing to tell other people to watch.
Yes.
That's the most important piece of engagement that we can get from people.
That's the almost like the advertising or the promotion.
It really is,
It is like writing a really compelling headline.
Exactly.
Which makes people think, I really must read that story. So it's the same thing, but very interesting. So no questions?
You can ask me anything. It doesn't have to be about this.
Oh, okay, there's one over here. One over
Yeah.
here. Right, okay, brilliant. We just have to try and, I'll just try and, have you caught one before? I'm rubbish. I'm so rubbish at throwing, though. This is the trouble. Right, okay, go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was interested to know, you showed the comparison between Al Jazeera broadcast traditional TV and your Facebook / YouTube. I have two very quick questions. The production for social media video is obviously very different. The budget is different. The resources different. Typically, for one video, how many people would have to do it? And the equipment, I would assuming, is much smaller. That's question number one. question number 2 is the comparison between Facebook and YouTube. I saw Facebook had much more views. So for you, is Facebook a more important medium than YouTube to promote the video?
Those are really good questions. The first one. So in order to create, so the first video that I showed, that very short video of the hairdresser, that was, I believe, a Reuters package that our video producer found, because we're on AP, Reuters, Getty, and we have access to all the packages. It costs nothing except a person's salary, to produce something like that. She was sitting in the office, was going through the packages, and took the footage that they had and made it in our way, right? Has the most viewed video in AJ Plus's history without many dollars spent. Our original reporting means that for South Korea, for example, we were there for 10 days. It was me, my correspondent, and one cameraman. So we're still extremely trim compared to, Vice and other places that we compete against, which have a huge team, several camera people, actual sound people. We don't have any of that. So we're still very, very light. Still, it can cost between 10 and 20,000 for us to produce, because I produced 4 videos. That wasn't the only one. So it's 4 videos from 7 to 15 minutes long. And so, yeah, it's extremely expensive to do original reporting. And as far as equipment, light equipment, so we usually just use Canons or a C300 and a 5D, I think is what we use. So just 2 cameras. I'm usually a second camera. The other question. So my mandate all of last year was Facebook first, Facebook first. This year I was told, okay, we want you guys on YouTube. You're going to be part of this new YouTube strategy. We haven't really focused on it at all, and we want original reporting to really lead on there. So that means that my focus now is to create content that is YouTube first and most optimized for YouTube, which I'm still figuring out and learning for our audience because it's so small. We haven't really built an audience there yet, so I'm still trying to figure them out. And then, because I understand Facebook so well and I know what'll do well on there, as an afterthought, I create Facebook cuts and throw them on there. So that's how we end up doing, hitting both platforms. My team is one of the only teams that's required to go viral on both platforms because we can and we do, and so it's just this expectation that we have. A lot of other teams in the office either are focused just on Facebook or just on YouTube.
Interesting. Interesting. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Absolutely
you.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, Vishal, you're next. Brilliant.